It's been a few years since I've added any new experiences. The last thing I recall writing about were whispers heard around my home. Since then, my father passed away from cancer, and his spirit may be responsible for some strange happenings. My father passed away in early May 2003, and that summer, I had a very vivid dream. It was Sunday, July 20th, and I'd worked very early that morning. I worked at the Gap, and we had to rearrange the clothing stock and add new items to the shelves. It took about 4 hours, and I arrived back at home around 10:30 a.m. I was exhausted due to waking up so early, so I drew the blinds and took a nap. Immediately after falling asleep, I dreamt that I was sitting on my father's bed in his home in London, Ontario. There was a knock on the door, and I got up to open it, and standing in front of me was my father, wearing his dark blue pajamas that he died in. He looked so luminous and healthy, and he was smiling. I hugged him and could feel his warmth, never wanting to let go. I looked up at him and asked, "Where are you going?" And he replied, "I don't know yet. I have some things to take care of." I asked him if there was a God, and he replied, "I don't know that yet, but we'll find out soon." Just then, my mother woke me up because she heard me crying. When I awoke, my eyes shot open and I had no idea where I was. I shot up upright, crying hysterically, asking, "Where did he go? Where is he?" My mom was so confused and tried to console me, but I was just so upset because it seemed like such a real encounter. I stayed in my room for the rest of the day because I felt he was there with me still. I felt that if I left him, I would abandon him. It sounds strange, and it may well have just been a dream, because his death just occurred 2 months before, and I was grieving heavily. I like to believe that it was him just trying to say goodbye. I haven't had any other dreams like this, although I've dreamt of my father. Mainly he will appear randomly in dreams that have nothing to do with anything. The second thing that happened was very frightening to me. This occurred last April, around Easter time. I had a terrible cold and was home from school for Easter weekend. We were set to leave for my grandparents' house that morning. Around 6 a.m., I awoke, coughing repeatedly. I took some Buckleys to calm my throat and rolled over onto my stomach, sprawled across the right side of my bed with my feet apart. Not a minute later, I heard a repeated tapping above my bed, on my headboard. It lasted about a full minute, and I did not think much of it, but suddenly, it felt as if someone placed their hand between my feet and compressed the covers, or as if a cat was sitting beneath my feet. It just appeared, this strange sensation. I lay frozen, not knowing what to think. I was frightened. I finally gathered the courage to rip out of bed and turn on my light. Of course, there was nothing there, and my door was closed and locked, so our cat was not in my room. I remember seeing a faint thread of light wisp by and disappear, but it could have been my eyes adjusting to the light, as it was still very dark at a.m. I told my mom about what had happened, and she mentioned that she had a similar experience in my room 2 weeks prior. She said it felt as if a cat jumped on the bed, but there was nothing there, of course. I'm not sure what to think. I like to think that it was my father, making sure I was alright. Maybe it was the ghost of a past cat, Oscar, or maybe it was nothing. One thing that convinces me that this was a paranormal incident is the fact that I've read about paranormal tapping before a paranormal event occurs. I read this book called The Ghost That Hunted Himself, The Story of the Mackenzie Poltergeist by Jane Andrew Henderson. It's a book of well-documented hauntings surrounding the Black Mausoleum, a tomb in Greyfriars Cemetery in Edinburgh, Ireland. Ben Scott leads tours of this tomb, and one of his encounters was very similar to my own. On page 21 it reads, "Ben lay in his bed, staring up at the ceiling. it was almost Easter. He had drank too much and had gone to bed alone. As he lay unsuccessfully trying to sleep, he heard a repeated tapping noise just above his head. Ben didn't know what it was, and he no longer cared. A few minutes later, he heard the heavy swish of the bed curtains parting. I almost couldn't breathe when I read this. I couldn't believe how related the incidents were, but it all could be a coincidence. One other thing that frightened me occurred this past May. It was May 5th actually, the second anniversary of my father's passing, and I'd just returned home from a friend's house. It was around 3 a.m., and I went to sleep in the guest computer room because my room was occupied by my mother because her basement room had been flooded due to a leak in the foundation when her pool thawed. I was dozing off when suddenly I heard something fall off the shelf of the computer desk onto the desk itself. It made a very loud noise and startled me awake. I was frozen and felt very threatened, like something was looming in the darkness, approaching me. I yelled out, "Go away!" not really thinking how ridiculous I sounded. I scrambled to open the door, proceeding to run out of the room and into my room to my mom. I jumped under the covers, absolutely quivering and crying. I get scared very easily, so she got up to check out the room. I went with her, and we turned on the light. A heavy compass that sat on the top shelf had fallen, and that's what the noise was. But how on earth did the compass itch off the shelf and fall into the desk is a complete and eerie mystery. Not too much else has happened since. Before we renovated the house over the summer, we would sometimes hear random knocks, and a picture of my father once gently fell to the floor when a plant was placed a little bit in front of it. My mother's diamond ring engagement ring from my father has disappeared and never is found to this day. But again, I guess these things happen. I just thought I'd share my ghost story. In the summer of 2001, I was living in Paris, in a building that I believe was built in 1863. The elevator was deemed historic. It was creaky and slow and broke often, but couldn't be replaced because it was antique, and they had rules about that. The elevator was wooden on 3 sides, and made of grating and stained glass in the front, and each landing was grated, so you could see right into the elevator when it stopped, and anyone standing there when you were in the elevator could see you. The elevator was very small, just big enough for 3 average weight people to stand inside. A friend visited me in August, and we decided to go out shopping in the afternoon. We went to the landing and pressed the button for the elevator. I might mention that I believe that we were probably just about the only people in this building at the time. The Parisians had all left for the seashore, and I hadn't seen anyone but the building's porter and one other person the whole summer. This day, when the elevator came, there was a man in it. My friend and I both gasped at the same time because it was very unexpected. The man was handsome, with thick black short hair, maybe in his 30s, tallish, wearing a dark suit with a white shirt that was open at the collar. He looked very crisp and rich, but a little tousled, like he had just come from a party. Within a blink of an eye, the man was gone, in a flash. The elevator hadn't opened. You pushed the door to open it. He just vanished. My friend and I said, "Did you see that?" to each other, and we confirmed the description. He looked like just a regular person, not clear or ghost-like at all. Then, she just got into the elevator. Brave. I got in with her, but I made her stand where he had been standing. In June of 1988, my husband and I moved to a small town in Gloucestershire County, New Jersey, called Polesboro. Polesboro is situated along the Delaware River in Matena Creek. To get into town, you have to cross a small bridge over Matena Creek. We had a dog, and after a long day at the office, banging away at a keyboard, I enjoyed taking our little darling for a walk. Many times the dog and I would walk down our street, turn onto Broad Street, cross the bridge, and walk down Crown Point Road for a bit, then turn home. For some reason, I was reluctant to walk on the east side of the bridge, or the east side of Crown Point Road near the bridge. I can remember looking off into a woodsy area on the east side of Crown Point Road, by the bridge, and thinking, I don't know what happened there, but it must have been really bad to make me feel this spooked. About 5 years ago, after we came to Poulsboro, I was driving home on a dark and stormy night, as Snoopy would say. The rain was so heavy, I could barely see the road ahead. As I approached the bridge from Crown Point Road, I caught a glimpse, through the murky weather, of a house on the east side of the bridge, where I knew no house was. It was that little woodsy area that always spooked me so much. The house was a ball of fire. Flames were shooting straight up into the air, like the 4th of July, and the smell of wood burning filled the car. As quickly as I saw the house, it was gone, vanished, and the scented charred wood disappeared with it. Yes, I was scared, even though the doors of the car were locked. Periodically, I'd be coming home from that direction, but only when it was stormy and late at night. I'd catch a 2 or 3 second glimpse of a house engulfed in fire, and the smell of the house burning, which is entirely different from the scent of something like leaves burning or a fireplace. This happened about 6 times over 10 years, and the experience really spooked me. A few years later, I learned that back in the 1930s or 1940s, can't remember the decade, but during that time period, there was a house located on that piece of ground. The family living there had either 5 or 6 children. I can't remember now how many, but it was more than 4. One night, when the father was working night shift, the house caught fire and all the children died in the blaze. Witnesses said the oldest girl, who was about 13, ran back into the house and up the stairs to save her littlest brother, who was a baby. Needless to say, now I understand why that spot always made me feel uncomfortable and where the scent of charred wood came from. What I think is interesting is that the ghost of this story isn't a person or an animal, but an inanimate object, a house that no longer exists and hasn't existed for over a half a century, but still blazes away like a Halloween pumpkin when conditions are just right. So, the next time there's an unusually dark and stormy night, come on down to Gloucestershire County, New Jersey, and head for Poulsboro on Crown Point Road. You may just be haunted by a house. My first name is Holly, and I don't know if this will help your page, or if you'd just be interested in hearing my story, but telling someone who will not laugh in my face will help me get this weight off my chest. I'm 21, so for me to tell my story to anyone, they aren't going to believe me, thinking that I'm young and I made it up. But let me tell you, after I tell you my life's experiences, you'll know it just isn't a figment of my imagination. Because if it is, then my whole family's crazy, along with me. The first haunting occurred in my grandmother's house. I have 2 sisters and 3 brothers. One of my brothers wasn't born until I was 14. One of those sisters is my identical twin, so pretty much whatever happened to the both of us for some reason. We never really had a twin connection until she moved away, and now it's like we're in the same room together, even though we're 300 miles away. Anyways, I lived in the house from the time I was 4 until I was about 16. I don't really remember when I first noticed strange things going on. The first thing I can actually remember is when I was 5. My sister and I shared a room and a bed, so I slept in the side closet to the door. I was always afraid to look into the hallway. I always felt like I wasn't alone, like someone was watching me. I woke up one night to see a huge ball of white light. I mean big and bright, enough to illuminate the entire hallway in my room. I watched it slowly flow out of the bathroom, past my room, all the way down the hall and down the stairs where it disappeared into the way. I wasn't afraid, but afterwards, When I realized that what I saw wasn't alive, I was terrified. Things always seemed to happen to one of us at a time, except once. We were all sitting watching TV one night when we first heard a crash in the dining room next to our living room. My mom went in to investigate. The picture was off the wall and sitting up against the wall on the floor. No broken glass, no nail missing from the wall. It was as if someone just took it off the wall and placed it on the floor. But that doesn't explain the loud crash that we all heard. We also had a wooden spoon, fork, and knife set that hung on the wall in the same room that liked to fall or go flying across the room. The older my sisters and brothers got, the more we realized this house wasn't your normal house. In normal houses, things don't go bump in the night. Strange voices don't call your name when you are home alone. Items don't disappear to be found years later on top of a shelf at eye level. Gusts of cold wind don't blow so hard that it makes your hair fly off your shoulders and it smells of an odor of your grandfather that passed away before moving into the house. Or footsteps that come up the stairs and right before it gets to where you can see the person, they stop. I remember I was always afraid of my grandmother's room because I had so many sisters and brothers. We had to share rooms. So when my brother came from college and got my room, I had to sleep on the floor of my grandma's room. I couldn't fall asleep because of the presence of a tall, thin man standing over my bed but looking at me. I couldn't actually see him, but I saw a shadow of him. I got the feeling he didn't like children because when I got to the age of about 11, I never saw him again. But I think there were also ghosts of children because once, when my twin and I were 13 and my older sister 15, we were out at a family party. My older brother was getting ready for a date when he looked into the mirror, which reflected off a mirror behind him so you could see into our grandma's room. And he saw what looked like a little girl, about 10 or 12, sitting on the bed. He said he thought it was me because I look younger than what I am and came into the room to ask why I hadn't left yet, and nobody was there. He said she looked just like me. I really don't know if it's in our DNA or what, but almost every house and I that my sisters and brothers live in is haunted. I get the feeling that our original ghosts have followed us. When we moved into the next home, but one after my grandma's, but the next one, I never actually saw anything, but my little brother who wasn't born until I was 15 says he saw something. I was about 19 and he about 5. He would refuse to go to the bathroom alone, said he wouldn't go into the hallway because the little girl sitting on the floor, crying, scared him. I thought he was making it up, but I could hear him talking to someone in the hallway sometimes, and I asked him who he was talking to, and he would say, the little girl who cries all the time, but nobody in the house could see her or hear her. When I was 18, my grandma, same grandma whose house is haunted, came to stay with us for a couple of months because her health wasn't too good. Anyway, I started hearing what sounded like footsteps, more like stomping, coming from upstairs. I thought I was imagining it until Grandma looks up at me and says, "Who's up there stomping around?" Mind you, I was the only one upstairs usually. The upstairs was one bedroom. After this house, my twin sister moved away and got married, and I went off to college. My older sister is living with her boyfriend. My older brother is living with his girlfriend and their baby girl. My oldest brother is living in an apartment, and my youngest brother is living with my mom and my stepfather in Indiana now. We are scattered across the United States, from Indiana to Texas to Pennsylvania and to New York. All of our houses are haunted, and I know because I've been to each one. First, I will start with my occurrence. When I went to college, I went to a cheap college and lived on campus, so I wouldn't be home with it. That didn't work, because when I had a friend over to watch a movie with me, we were sitting on a bunk bed they provide for us, and the window behind us decided it wanted to be open all the way up and slammed back down. The window was closed and locked. Then sometime later, I was sleeping on the top bunk and my roomie was on the bottom. I had my hand hanging over the side like I usually do, and I felt someone tug on my hand, hard enough to jar me from my sleep and almost slide me off the edge I said, "Hey, stop it," thinking it was my roomie, under me, being childish, until I heard a giggle that could only come from a little girl. Needless to say, I didn't sleep the rest of the night, and the next day, I moved out to a townhouse all the way across campus, but I guess the ghost wasn't alone. Sure, even he liked to go room to room, waking up girls and keeping them up all night, pulling their hair, turning the TVs on. I heard about it the next morning in the cafeteria at breakfast. Now I'm getting married to my college sweetheart, and once again, I get the feeling that I'm not alone. Door handles turn on their own. I keep seeing a shadow of a person in the hallway. My twin sister had her ghost tug on her earring while in her car. Toilets flush. It sounds funny, but it's true. Smells of perfume. Her 2-year-old who is looking up at something that isn't there and smiling. Or her waking up and trying to say someone jumbled up about a lady. My mom's house in Indiana is most uncomfortable. My little brother, who is now almost 7, new room, has his own computer in it. I was lying on the bed with him one night, trying to get him to go to sleep. He kept saying he didn't like the new computer and to take it out of the room, when all of a sudden, the keyboard started typing away on its own. He and I bolted from the room. The computer is now in the basement. It still likes to do that tapping crap, but at least it isn't in his room with him. As far as seeing anything, none of us in our new house has seen anything, but the odors, footsteps, things disappearing, and voices haven't left any of us. The only thing that I can think of was our uncle had been sick, and Mike, my older brother, was sitting in the living room of his house sleeping. Woke up to 3 balls of light coming from the ceiling forward downward until it came next to him and disappeared. His girlfriend, who is psychic, I know this all sounds strange, said that it was the spirit of our uncle coming to tell him he was safe and had passed on to the other side safe. The next morning, we got a call from the hospital saying my uncle passed on. That isn't it. I don't know if this has to do with my mom's haunting, but a blackbird got into her sunroom. No doors or windows even open. It just sat there staring at her. Didn't fly or anything. Just was there. Didn't know how it even got there, but it was there all day long. That night, a close friend of the family died. Wasn't sick, just had a heartache at a young age, and died. My mom thought the blackbird was an omen and went to go see if it was still there, and it was gone. Same sort of thing happened to my aunt and uncle. A bird came into the house. They didn't know how, it wouldn't leave, and then just disappeared when something bad happened to their son. I don't know what the connection is. I've just moved into my new home on October 30th, 2005, and I am renting it. The night before, I was here painting one of the upstairs bedrooms. Around 10 p.m., I distinctly heard my patio door open in the dining room at the bottom of the steps and footsteps creaking the steps up to where I was painting. No one entered the room I was painting. I thought it was my boyfriend, but he didn't answer when I called his name. A minute later, my boyfriend called my cell phone from his house, and I thought it was nuts for even thinking so dumb. Now a month later, we have several other occurrences that have been taking place. My daughter felt and heard a whisper in her ear as she bent down to the empty dryer in the laundry room. Her bedroom lights go on and off often. Our wiener dog will not enter the room. If she puts her head in there, she scratches to get out after a few seconds. We hear 2 men's voices having a conversation in the living room, and there are no other radios or TVs on in the whole house. I like it quiet when I am home. The kids hear banging in the night in their rooms with the huge closets that they have. We hear what sounds like heavy items hitting the basement floor all the time, and there's nothing there when we run to look. There are many cold spots in the house. Just last night, December 7th, at 3:20 a.m., I got up to go to the bathroom at my usual 3 a.m. waking, for no reason at all, each night, and the bathroom door was not closed all the way. Since it was 3:20 a.m., I did not fear anyone would be coming in on me. Just then, the door started to pull open, and I yelled, "I'm in here," and the door closed and shut all the way. I looked at my bedroom door, just adjacent to my bathroom door, and my boyfriend was snoring away peacefully, and I awoke him and asked him if he was at the door, and he was angry at me for waking him with such a stupid question. I then went upstairs to my children's room and found them both sleeping peacefully soundly. This afternoon, my landlord called me about a cable installation problem, and I asked her if my house was haunted. She hesitated what felt like an eternity, and then she finally answered. It's the man across the street. He watched over my girls. He hung out in my youngest daughter's room. That's why they slept together in my oldest girl's room. Her baby is 2, and her oldest is 4. She said they weren't scared of him. He was friendly. She couldn't remember his name, but that he killed himself in the house across the street years ago, and I should go ask her grandfather-in-law that works next door what his name was. I asked him, and found it to be Russell Lutz, and he shot himself in his basement as he was dying from cancer 25 years ago. She said to talk to him by name, and that they did. She was surprised I hadn't called her earlier about it, so she figured we weren't bothered by him. She has not awoke at 3 a.m. since she moved out of here, and the girls have not been visited by Russell Lutz yet. We're not afraid of him at all, and talk to him out loud all the time. The kids ask him to turn on things, and he doesn't. Ha! My kids are 14 and 16, and think it's awesome we have a haunted house. Last night my son and I went next door to work on an Xmas tree and wreaths they sell, and a path was shoveled from their door to my door with a shovel. It wasn't there when we just drove in the driveway from religious class, and stepped in the house to get gloves, and stepped back out to walk 160 feet to their door. Weird. Throughout my life, I've encountered many ghosts. Good thing the ghosts never bother me. They walk away, as if I was not there, but I clearly see them, as clear and as clean as a window. Anyways, 1995 in Glendale, Arizona, we just moved into a house located near the downtown Glendale area. This area was a mess at the time, and in the middle of the housing area is a small cemetery. In my opinion, it should not be there and should be moved. For crying out loud, it's a residence area. But all around Glendale, especially West Glendale, lies many scattered cemeteries. Anyways, back to my experience. One night I was home alone. Family went to California for a vacation and left during the afternoon. Everything was fine till night came. When night came, all hell broke loose. As usual, I would take a bath before I head to bed, and while I was bathing, I swore something walked through the door and started screaming. I got so scared, I popped out of the tub. My heart was racing. I felt so cold. I felt like time had frozen. My head was spinning, and the only thing I could think of was what the heck was that? When I was having my panic attack, the ghost, the thing, the whatever it was, backed up and passed the door. It was not screaming, but it said sorry. Anyways, I hurried and washed the remaining soap and shampoo off me and headed out looking around the house for the thing. At this time, I was not as scared because I got my iron rod. I don't know why this rod always made me feel safe. This rod is sacred to me. I call it my demon rod. Anyways, I searched the house. Nothing was found. I headed for bed and hoped morning came fast. I made it through the night and did not experience anything else. The thing at the time I saw, it didn't look like human. It didn't look like no animal, nor did it come close to looking anything like from this planet. I did, however, suspect it was a ghost. Of what, I don't know exactly. But this was not the last of it, for I seen it many more times after this, and it always was around when my rod was not with me. I submitted a story to you prior to this one a couple of years ago. I've had some recent occurrences that I would like to share with you, if that's okay. Here is my story. In the fall of 2001, my best friend Harley was killed in a tragic car accident, and I took his death very hard. When he first died, I felt that he was always around. When I was living in England, my dorm room would smell like his aftershave, and I continued to sense he was around, and occasionally he would come to me in a dream, but lately things have been quiet until recently. A couple of months ago, I had a dream with Harley in it. We were sitting around a picnic table, and he just looked as healthy and happy as if he were alive. He told me to quit worrying about everything, and I would be alright. He would never stop taking care of me. And then this past Thanksgiving, I was driving to my boyfriend's house, and as I'm going along on the highway, I got this strange feeling like the car in the next lane was going to cut me off. So I backed off the car in front of me, and wouldn't you know it, that car cut in front of me with no warning at all. Now, how did I know that the car was going to do that before he even did it? Some people tell me it was my friend looking out for me, since his accident occurred on Thanksgiving. I know they are not big, spooky stories, but they make me believe that we do not die after death, and that we can still communicate with our loved ones here on Earth. Thanks for listening. I remember I was walking down the street one night, and someone held up a big sign, and they were like, "Dude, that's Phantom of Darkness." And I was like, "What? Who's Phantom of Darkness?" And they were like, "I don't know, but I'm going to subscribe anyway." I slur my words, and I don't even talk properly, and that's exactly why I'm attracted to your writing. Writing? What are we talking about? I don't know. I'm an alien from the 5th dimension, and we know that what comes out must stay out. That's how we do in Alien Land. Don't you mean Las Vegas? No, I mean Alien Land. Alien Land. Alien Land. So, what do you propose we do, Mr. Billboard Sign Man, who holds up the sign and doesn't really care about anything else? Well, you could comment, like, subscribe, and share. I'm not sure what I'm doing at this point. Okay. I'm good, guys. Sorry about that. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in again. I don't know. I'm excited. I got a 30-minute video out, and when I express my excitement, I do some really wacky and silly things. Anyway, guys, thank you so much again for tuning in. A lot of good collection of stories in this one. I'm really thankful for you guys to actually tune in again, and all you 9,000, almost 10,000 subscribers of mine, thank you. I encourage you to again subscribe because I have the weirdest outros in the world and they don't really make any sense, and obviously they're not something that would you be turned on by at all. I don't know why I said that, but whatever, doesn't matter. Guys, good night, good morning. I'll see you in the next video. Share this video, comment, let me know what's going on in your mind right now. Let me know if you're new, how long you've been, attached to this channel for, if that even makes sense, and I'll talk to you later.